Our entire nation saw horrifying images that do not reflect who we are. We know that those images painfully conjured up the worst elements of our nation's ongoing battle against systemic racism. This investigation will be based on the facts.
You know, the interesting thing when he was out there lambasting those agents over the so-called whipping, he kept a straight face during that entire press conference. But bombshell emails revealed that prior to that comment, prior to that press conference, nearly 13 months ago, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas was told that the photographer who captured the images that he was speaking about Border Patrol agents on horseback supposedly whipping Haitian migrants, was adamant. The photographer was adamant that the images were misleading and no way depicted abusive or humane treatment. Nonetheless, as you just heard, it didn't stop him from manufacturing fake outrage and shamelessly smearing the agents seen in the photos. Let's bring in our Thursday company to break that down. Mark Morgan, former commissioner for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and Ken Cuccinelli, former deputy secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Mark, before we get your thoughts, I want to play another soundbite from the same day last September prior to the secretary's remark. Here's what President Biden had to say.
To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, it's outrageous. I promise you, those people will pay. They will be, there's an investigation underway now, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences.
So, Mark, one of two things had to have happened. Either Secretary Mayorkas briefed the president on what he was told, and they both misled us, or Mayorkas chose not to disclose what he knew, what he had been briefed to the president, and allowed him to misinform the American people by making those remarks. Either way, he, completely is unfit to hold the job that he has, and people are understandably outraged, and those border agents deserve an unmistakable apology.
Yeah, Sean, I couldn't agree more. Either way, it's indefensible. I mean, the secretary abdicated his responsibility. Either way, you cut it. And look, we already knew this secretary was a liar. He's lied to the American people when he continues to say our borders are closed and secure. He's lied to Congress under oath when he says he has operation control of the border. He's been an abject failure when it comes to be Secretary of Homeland Security. As we know, his open border policies that he's shepherded in on behalf of the White House are allowing drugs and criminals and national security threats to pour to our country, killing Americans and killing migrants. If that's not enough, now we can add he's just a good old-fashioned scumbag, right? I mean, he knew 2.5 hours before he went to the White House. And look, this wasn't just a press conference. Sean, you've been there. I've been there. Ken has been there. This was the White House press office, the briefing room. With that comes enormous responsibility to be honest and transparent with the American people. He failed to do that. He knew he was lying. He intentionally did it. He threw the men and women of Border Patrol under the bus to fuel and enable a partisan lie. This man's got to go. He's a disgrace. He should resign immediately.
Ken, Republicans have been talking about impeaching Secretary Mayorkas for quite some time now for his poor handling of the border. But as Mark points out, this is not about doing a bad job. This is about blatantly lying and also not informing your boss about something you just found out, that you're about to go on the record and say terrible things about your own people and back it up with your own comments. So, I mean, how important is it that he stepped down? Do you think that there will be pressure within the administration at all because of this lie?
I think there will be. As you can tell, when you look at the Biden clip and the Mayorkas clip, he was playing along with the president. And it may well be that the information he got was too late to sort of head the president off, if you will. But I would add one more to your list, and Mark touched on it. Look, he has a responsibility to America to keep us secure, but he is also responsible in the same way a platoon officer is responsible for his men, the men and women under his command, to take care of them. And he, instead of doing that, this is the equivalent of like shooting them in the head, throwing them in the creek so he can walk across and keep his shoes dry. That's what he did here. This was outrageous lack of concern and literally the use and abuse of his own people to further a political narrative and nothing more. This is utterly impeachable. It's offensive to see as someone who has shared in the responsibility for law enforcement, and it shouldn't be accepted. I do think there's going to be more and growing pressure for him to resign, and he has given an entirely new argument to those who seek to impeach him.
Yeah, Mark, I want to switch gears a little bit. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is now saying that she needs a federal response to the migrant crisis. I find it interesting. They want a federal response to the migrant crisis, and yet the response should just be, hey, close the border, shouldn't it?
Yeah, Sean, you're exactly right. First of all, it's a day late, dollar short. So after 20 months of a catastrophic open border policy, like I said, this allowing criminals and national security threat and drugs pouring this country, including the state of New York, she's just now come to the table. So the first thing I'd say, hey, Governor, welcome to the party, the one that we've been having for the past 20 months. And she, when she refers to this as a humanitarian crisis, she doesn't call out the Biden administration for the policies that have caused this. She doesn't call out the Biden administration to reverse course and reinstitute the Trump-era policies, which led to the most secure border in our lifetime. All she does is the typical Democratic talking point: give me more money, more money. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. And the one thing she doesn't say is she does not be honest with not only the individuals of New York, the citizens she's there supposed to protect. She's not honest with the American people, because it's not just about illegal aliens coming. Again, what she doesn't talk about is the crime that's being incorporated and bust into New York City and the state of New York, as well as the national security threats.
Yeah. Ken, I only have a little bit of time left, but Republicans think that they can fix this. Do you think they've done enough to convince voters that they have the solution to fix the border?
I have been underwhelmed with the specificity that the Republican leadership has brought to the table on what they'll do if they get the majority. I do think they're going to get the majority. They have made it clear this is a priority, but in the vague kind of language we've heard before, and it's easy to be tough in the minority. The real test is going to be when they use budget riders to actually hold this administration accountable and to commence securing the border.
That's the key. Mark, Ken, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time.